Hey guys, I'm Jessie, and today I thought it'd be fun to see what Guardians of the Galaxy's Peter Quill and Gamora's baby might look like. I've done something like this before with the Grinch and Martha May from How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and judging by the fact that it's my most popular video, you guys seem to like it. And so did I, so I'm doing it again. Now, like the first time, the way I will be choosing the features the baby will have is by science. I'll take a feature, like the eyes or chin, and make a Punnett square based off what trait each parent has. Then, based off the result of the Punnett square, I'll take the trait with the highest probability of being passed on for the baby. Some of you might be wondering what a Punnett square is, so I'll walk through the first one for you guys. Let's start with the chin. Looking at the parents, if we look at Peter's chin, he seems to have a slight cleft, and if you look at Gamora's chin, she doesn't. So which would the baby have? Well, now we get into dominant and recessive traits. A dominant trait is a trait that's most likely to be passed on, and a recessive trait is a trait that's less likely to be passed on. So, if you're passed one dominant allele from one parent, such as the one for brown eyes, and one recessive allele from your other parent, such as the one for blue eyes, you will be born with brown eyes because the dominant allele will win over. Back to the chin. Having a cleft chin is a dominant trait. So that must mean the baby will have a cleft chin, right? Not necessarily. Sometimes if both parents display the dominant trait but are a carrier of the recessive allele, then they can pass on that recessive trait down to their offspring. So if Peter is a carrier of the recessive allele, then there's a chance that the baby won't have a cleft chin. So how do we know if Peter is a carrier of the recessive allele or not? Well, a good way to get an idea is to take a look at Peter's parents. Let's start with his mother. She does not have a cleft chin. So our Punnett square for Peter would start out with two recessive alleles from his mother, which I'm showing here as two lowercase n's to stand for no cleft. Now let's take a look at his father.
He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
He does have a cleft chin. So I'm going to add two uppercase C's to our Punnett square on his side to symbolize that this is the dominant trait for having a cleft chin. Now, to find out what possible pairs of alleles Peter could have, we would fill out the boxes as follows, starting with the top uppercase C and the left lowercase n. This gives us the following pair. Let's repeat this process again with the top uppercase C, but this time with the right lowercase n. As you can see, this gives us the same pairing. To get the last two pairs, we simply repeat what I've just done with the top row as the bottom row. You'll notice that all the pairings are the same, an uppercase C and a lowercase n, meaning that no matter what, this would be Peter's allele pairing for this trait. Let's add this to a Punnett square for the baby. Now obviously we can't look back at Gamora's parents to estimate her allele pairing. However, we might not need to. As I said earlier, the gene responsible for not having a cleft chin is recessive, meaning that to display this trait, one would have to inherit the recessive allele from both parents. This means that Gamora's allele pairing would appear as two lowercase n's. Now is a good time for me to pause and insert a disclaimer here. Obviously, I know Gamora isn't human, and that she's a Zehoberry. There might be a chance that the biology just doesn't work the same on her home world. However, I don't have access to how the biology works on this fictional planet, so for the rest of this video, I'm just going to have to rely on human science. For example, if a certain trait is known to be recessive in humans, and that same trait seems to be clearly dominant on her planet, then the dominance of her gene will override the recessive human trait. You'll see an example of this later in the video. Alright, back to the Punnett square. If we follow the steps I did earlier to get Peter's allele pairings, we'll find that there is a 50% chance the baby will be born with a cleft chin. So, how do we figure out which to give the baby? Well, it's easy. I'm just going to take the left side divided by the right side, then I'm going to take the circumference of pi multiplied by the radius of the ulna. I'm completely kidding. I flipped a coin. And now the baby's getting a cleft chin. Moving on, let's take a look at the nose. Peter's nose is more narrow and pointy, while Gamora's is slightly more broad and not as pointy. After researching, I found out that a nose like Gamora's is a dominant trait, and that tells us that the Punnett square will come out looking like this, with a 100% chance that the nose will come out looking more like Gamora's. However, baby noses all seem to look basically the same from the beginning anyway, so I don't really need to change anything here. Last thing I'll get to before moving into the big changes is the ears. Gamora has what is called a free earlobe, and Peter has attached earlobes. Having free earlobes, or detached lobes, is a dominant trait, and Peter's attached earlobes are recessive. Therefore, the Punnett square will look like this, again with a 100% chance of the baby having detached earlobes, which this baby in the photo already has, so I don't need to change it. Also, fun fact, while I was researching what traits to give the baby, I noticed that Peter Quill has attached earlobes while both of his parents have detached earlobes. This means that both of his parents would need to be carriers of the recessive allele to pass this trait onto Peter. And if you look at a Punnett square displaying this fact, then you'll see that Peter only had a 25% chance of having the earlobes that he does. Neat. Alright, moving on. Let's look at the hair. Gamora has black hair with magenta-ish tips. And this is apparently a trait that all her race has, and isn't just a choice of her personal hair dye. Now, for humans, black hair is a dominant trait, and since it's also dominant on Zenhuberry, I'm just going to go ahead and fill in her side of the Punnett square as being both the dominant alleles for black hair. Now, looking at Peter, he has strawberry blonde hair, which is a little bit more complicated. Hair is a little different, it's determined by multiple alleles. Looking at this image here, explaining the different alleles and what combinations would allow which hair color, it seems evident that to get Peter's strawberry blonde hair color, he would need both alleles for blonde and red hair. But where would it have come from? His mother has blonde hair and his father had brown hair. Well, it could have come from either parent if they carried a recessive red allele. But let's assume in this case it came from his father, giving him a 50% chance of having the hair he does. Again, another disclaimer. I know that Peter's father wasn't human either, and who knows what kind of celestial biological madness could be going on here. His father's genes could throw out the entire rulebook for all I know, but this is science fiction, so I'm just gonna pretend like I know what I'm doing and have fun with this. Okay? Okay, back to the baby's hair. The finished Punnett square shows us that no matter what, this baby is coming out with black hair like Gamora. And I'm going to assume that it will most likely be magenta at the tips as well, so I'm going to get on that. While I'm doing that, let's work on the Punnett square for the skin color. Now, here on Earth, pale skin is a recessive trait, and having darker skin is a dominant trait. That being said, on Gamora's homeworld, it's clear that having green skin is the dominant trait. So we'll start off the Punnett square with 2 uppercase G's on Gamora's side and 2 lowercase p's on Peter's side. This shows a 100% chance of the skin color of the baby being a mix between the 2 parents, but will clearly favor a greener tone. So I'll change this baby's skin tone to a tone of green that's not quite as green as Gamora. While I'm doing that, another fun fact. While I was looking stuff up about Gamora, I found out that among the traits her race is known for, they also have a second liver, which is pretty cool. If you made it this far, write something down below like, wow, the Zenhuberry people can really hold their liquor. I love messing with other viewers. I think I might make this a thing in every video. About now, you're probably wondering if the baby would come out with similar distinctive markings on his cheeks and forehead like Gamora. Well, after seeing young Gamora in Infinity War and noticing that she didn't appear to have these markings, I have to assume that either the Zenhuberry people don't develop these markings until adulthood, or more likely that they are a result of Gamora's cybernetic augmentation. Either way, it seems apparent that the baby would not have these markings, so I won't be adding them. Moving on to eye color, Gamora has brown eyes, which is a dominant trait. Peter has green eyes, which is recessive to brown. And a finished Punnett square will show us that the baby will have a 100% chance of having brown eyes. Alright, here we are! This is what Peter and Gamora's baby would most likely look like according to science. If you made it this far, let me know what you think. Is this what you thought their baby would look like? Who might you like to see me do this with next? I've gotten requests to do this with Drax and Mantis, so if that's something you'd like to see, then let me know. Alright, one last thing before I go. I want to feature this piece from artist Valentina D'Amato from Italy. If you'd like to see more of her work, then check out her links in the description. Also, if you'd like a chance for your work to be featured in a future video, then submit your work to me via DeviantArt. All my links are down below. I guess I should actually talk about one more thing before I go. For those of you who may not know, I'm on Patreon! If you don't know what that is, it's a place where people like you can support creators like me while getting awesome rewards in the process. So if you like what I do and want to help support my work so that I can make more for you guys, then check out my Patreon where you can get rewards like early access to videos, exclusive updates, MP3 downloads of my creepypasta narrations, and much more. I've included a link in the description if you'd like to check it out. Thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like to see more, then check out my other videos to the right. Also, if you haven't already and you'd like to be, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and bell icon so you don't miss out on any future videos. Again, thank you all for watching and I'll see you all next week. Bye!